Okay, so in today's video, I want to talk about 5 steps for how to plan a route in under 10 minutes, even if you've never ridden in that area before. This might be familiar to quite a few of you, but it might be worth sticking around because you might learn 1 or 2 things. And at the end of the video, we'd love to hear some of your tips down in the comments below. So yeah, stick around. So the first thing that you're gonna need is an account with Komoot. Now Komoot is the route planner that I tend to use. It is free to use, although you need to pay to unlock maps, to unlock regions. And so it's a one-off cost. You can either unlock just your local region or the entire world. And actually Komoot are currently doing an offer where if you use the link in the video description, you can unlock a free region bundle. And so it means you can get started straight away for free. The second thing that you're gonna need is either a GPS head unit, so something like a Wahoo or a Garmin, or being able to attach your phone to the front of your bike in some way. That will also work too. But yeah, those are the only 2 things you need. So let's get into step 1. Step 1, what kind of ride are you doing? Are you doing road or gravel or something else? Komoot has this really helpful feature. It's under the sport section and you can basically choose the type of riding that you're doing. It's got road, gravel, mountain bike, you can plan hikes or running. This basically tells Komoot the type of ride that you're doing and will help it to choose the best roads or trails or paths depending on the style of riding. But for this example, let's stick with road ride. Next, we've got to figure out what the purpose of the ride is. Is it a short, punchy training ride, an A to B? Do we want to go and visit a nice cafe, or are there some climbs that we want to take in? Deciding basically what the point of the route is will help us to then decide what we do next. But let's imagine that there's a really nice cafe that we want to visit, and then also that we're going to take in a famous climb around the local area. I've got those 2 things in mind and I'm going to start to plan the route. The first thing that I'm going to do is choose where I'm starting from. So that's Beeston, which is the town that I live in. Then I'm going to choose the climb. So I'm going to go and find Terrace Hill, which is one of the 100 hardest climbs. And then I'm going to find the cafe, which is Cafe Velo Verde, which is a really nice cafe near me. I'm going to do that after the climb because nobody wants to climb on a full stomach of food. And now the route is started to plan its way out. So now we started to plan the route. If we go in and we click round trip, Komoot's going to start and end in the same place. And now technically we have like a circular route that we could go out and do. But as you can see, there's maybe a few changes that we still want to make. The next thing that I want to do is check the weather. So this is just always a smart thing to do. It gives you a bit of a heads up of what the weather's going to be like that day. It helps you to determine what kit you're going to bring, jackets, gilets, all of that kind of stuff. But the other really helpful thing that we can learn from the weather is the direction of the wind. And so figuring out where the wind is coming from will maybe just help to dictate how we plan the route. So typically I like to go out into the headwind, or if I can make it a bit of a cross headwind, then I'll do that. And then I like to come back with a tailwind. This is helpful for 2 reasons. One, sort of mentally, it's just really nice to know that you always have a tailwind at the end of a ride. And secondly, it just helps you to pace your effort a little bit more, knowing that like the harder bit is going to be at the front and the easier bit is going to be at the end. So today, as I'm planning this route, I can see that the wind is blowing from the east. So I'm going to maybe head out in like a south direction, southeast, so that I'm into that headwind, cross headwind, and then I'm going to try to come back west and get that beautiful tailwind all the way home. Sometimes there's not that much you can do about it and you go out with a tailwind and back with a headwind, or you have a crosswind all day, or you have a headwind all day. But typically, if I can, I will try to plan it this way. Step 3, finalizing the route. So now we've got the sort of bare bones of a route, and this is just generally why I'm a big fan of Komoot. By just selecting a start point, an end point, a hill and a cafe, we now have a pretty good route with just a couple of adjustments. And what Komoot has done is chosen the roads that it thinks we'll want to ride. So based on data from thousands of cyclists on the roads that they typically ride, Komoot is then going to build our route trying to put us onto these particular roads. Typically it will avoid main roads if it can, like big A roads. It'll avoid like gravelly single track stuff if we put in the road mode. If we put gravel mode in, it'll try and avoid roads altogether and take us on trails. And I think this is amazing, and this is why I use Komoot over something like Google Maps, because Google Maps is only going to put in the sort of shortest way for you to get to A to B, and that's going to include a lot of main roads. But it's not always perfect, and I'll come on to that in the next point. So if you were happy with this route, you could just move on to the next point, like I said. But in this scenario, I'd quite like the route to be a little bit longer, so I'm gonna extend it a little bit by just dragging some of these points out. I'm also gonna look at these little highlight markers, so the little red circles with the cycling icon in the middle. These are highlights, like I mentioned, that people have saved on Komoot. So we can have a look through these. There's things like pubs and nice views and cafes, and we can just see, is there any of these that would be nice to take in on our ride? And so we can add those in, or we can just choose and drag and add in areas that we think might be nice for us to cycle through. And when it comes to the cafe stop, typically I'll try to plan that at kind of 2/3 into the route. So it means that you get a nice big chunk of the route done, and then you've got the cafe, refuel, and a shorter ride back home, hopefully with a tailwind. Obviously, if you're doing a big day and you have multiple cafe stops, then you can plan that accordingly. For just a small sort of cafe ride, this is what I would typically tend to do. Step 4 is double checking the roads. Sometimes, like I said, Komoot doesn't get it perfect, and sometimes it puts you on a road like the A1 that you might want to avoid. You need to sort of plan accordingly. And so what you can do is just follow the route around, have a little bit of a look to see if you can see any of those like yellow highlighted A roads, and you can zoom in, have a look, see if you want to avoid it. But it also has this really handy feature of being able to check the Google Street View. So you can just click a point on the road, view the street view, and then have a little bit of a scan around to see whether it's a type of road that you'd like to ride. So in this situation on the A1, it definitely doesn't look like I want to cycle my bike down there. And so I'm gonna have to try and plan a way to sort of avoid that part of the route. But also you might want to check the surfaces element of Komoot down on the bottom left of the screen, and that will show you areas that might be like gravelly or maybe not road bike friendly. So we can also use the same feature, the street view feature, to just click in on areas and see whether it's maybe a bit gravelly or whether there's actually a cycle path there. And you can see in this scenario there's actually some stairs onto a bridge that is classed as single track. You know, we can decide whether we want to include that or not. On this ride, it's pretty social, so I'm happy with the stairs. But if you were doing like a bit of a training ride, you might want to avoid that. And then finally, now that you've got a tidy route, moving on to step 5, which is climbs. So once I've given the route a bit of a once over, I'll turn my attention to the climbs. Komoot provides like a really solid picture of the different climbs that you have on your route. It shows you things like the elevation profile, a breakdown of the gradients, and I find this super helpful for route planning because it just helps you to imagine the various different climbs and where they're going to turn up on the route. But it's also really helpful for planning nutrition as well. So if you've got a couple of big hills, you might want to just take an extra bar or an extra gel, and so it kind of helps you to map that out as well. Like I said in a previous video that I'll link around here, Wahoo and also Garmin now have these new live climb features, and so if you've got one of their GPS head units, when you get to a climb, it's going to show you a breakdown of all of the climbing data, gradients, how long you have left, etc. And I've been loving that, and so if you want to know a little bit more about that, I'll link the video up above. Now that's pretty much it. We'll hit save, give the route a lovely name, and then because I've got a Wahoo head unit, once I save it, it just gets automatically synced to my head unit. So I can go get my kit on and get outside, and I'm gonna have the route ready to go. And so that is 5 steps for how to plan a cycling ride. There's definitely things that I've not included on here, so if there's anything that you do that is different to this, or any little tips that you have, any other software that you use, or things that you check, then let us know down in the comments below, especially for those where this is still new. They'd love to hear the kinds of things that you do. Thank you very much for watching the video. If you like this kind of thing and you want to see more of this, then hit a like down below, because that just really helps me determine the types of videos that I want to do more or less of, and it helps to support the channel. And if you're not already subscribed, then please do subscribe. We would love to have you, and we have so many more videos planned this summer. But that's all from me. I will catch you in the next one. Cheers.